Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bilingual Find Your Place podcast. Desiring to show that it is possible to make unpopular choices, even out of the norm, and be happy, wishing to prove that happiness comes from choosing yourself rather than giving in to popular pressure, I receive people who have made the best of a situation that put them in the different box. My name is Stephanie Bergo, and I'm the host of this show. I've been working as a potential catalyst for more than 10 years, and my mission is to allow people to give themselves the right to be all that they are, and thus believe that their dreams are achievable. Welcome to these interviews. Welcome to the Find Your Place podcast. I have the pleasure today to welcome Inarra Aryane Griffyn. Thank you so much for your time with me today. I'm blessed.
Oh, it's so nice to speak to you all the way from London, all the way to Montreal. It's fantastic.
Yes, those technologies are amazing. It brings me everywhere in the world with the podcast. I'm thrilled about that. That's super cool.
It's so funny because you said, and you like my accent, and I'm like, I really like your accent too. It's like this sort of love of the flavor of the world.
Yes, totally. And in Canada here, we have many English speaking people, and a lot of them are much more like on Canadian or American accent. So I love the British accent and the Scottish accent, and those feels like a bit exotic. So maybe the French accent for you is a bit exotic as well.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So as you said, you live in London. Have you always lived there?
No, I'm from the north of England, Yorkshire, and then my parents emigrated to Canada. And so I've also lived in Canada for 12 years. I had my teenagehood in Toronto, and my university, the first university I did was in Toronto.
Very cool.
And then I moved back. I left them there. They're still in Canada.
And wow.
I come a lot, but I just thought it's not my land. I'm coming back to England.
That's super cool. Whenever you come, just let me know. I'm gonna come and see you at Toronto. It's very it's near, it's not that far compared to England.
No, and actually I would say the other way. I'll come visit you and see Montreal and all I'd really like to see the fashion and the food, and it would be more interesting to me than Toronto.
Montreal is a great city. It's like mixed Latin and English, and it's very cool. I love it too. And I went to London once, but only for half a day, so I have to come back, that's for sure. Because I was going to Dublin actually, so I stayed just half the day and then went to Ireland.
Oh, okay.
It was cool. Yeah. Couple of years ago when I was younger. I went on a trip for 4 days because we found ticket at 1:15, I think, and I was like, okay, let's do this. 4 days in Ireland.
Oh my God, I've just literally come back from Ireland last night. I was there for 6 days just because I love the West Coast. I love Dublin as well, but the West Coast is some of the most beautiful scenery you will ever see anywhere in the world. The Emerald Isle, the Greek
I have
island.
to go back.
Yeah.
To go back. It was so fun. I loved it too. And we were lucky we had the great temperature. I think it rains only half a day, like in those 4 days. So it was super cool. So what did you study while you were in Canada and university? And what did you do when you went back to London?
I had a funny experience in Toronto. I did very well in history. And so I won a scholarship. And my father worked at the University of Toronto. That's Phoenix's departing bottom, if you can. And so I won a scholarship. I found myself in the first year of history. I didn't have to pay because I won this scholarship. And then I found myself going, well, what on earth am I going to be? Like a history teacher. So I had a boyfriend at the time who was in film. I went into film studies because of him, and I ended up doing sort of literature and film studies. And then when I left Canada after the end of, the graduation, I came straight back to London and I worked in film. And then I also worked as a photographer for 20 years. So I was a professional photographer before any of this you know, what we're going to talk about. Before any of the entrepreneurship, I did that and then left it
And
all behind.
when you were a photographer, were you an entrepreneur already, or you were working for
I
others?
didn't I didn't understand that I was.
Hmm,
I was for sure.
really?
And I had a very important moment. I'm going to tell you about another story later, but this moment happened when I was in London working in a film unit. And so I was already established and I thought, "Oh, this is my life. That's going to be me.
Mm.
This is it." And then I went to India, which was a
Wow.
spiritual calling. I really, you know, and I went to the desert, which was Rajasthan, and I was told there was this famous shrine up the top of a mountain. So one morning, I walked all the way up this mountain at the crack of dawn, and there was a shrine to Brahma, which is the creator. And they have different gods and goddesses in India,
Yeah.
but they only have one shrine to Brahma because he's the creation. So you can only have creation from one source, is their belief. So
Yeah.
it's a very sacred site. I sat on it, I meditated, and then I got this download which said, happiness is a choice. And I was like, if you can believe that I didn't know that at all, I thought some people were happy, some people were not.
Oh, wow.
So I was like altered, like alchemy in that moment. And then the second part of the piece of information downloaded, and it said, and you will never be happy working 9 to 5. And it was just these two very important sentences, zoom, come straight into me. I am like, whoa, you know, I'm a totally different person by the time I walked down the mountain. And then I found out that the film unit had given my job away while I was away. I was
Oh, wow.
pissed off, but briefly, because then I realized that the universe had given me this wonderful, like, hey, you're not meant to do 9 to 5.
Hmm.
And from that point on, I created a bit of a blueprint, which I use when I coach entrepreneurs. I get them to talk about, which is what I did at that point. I sort of freaked out. There was a moment of like, ah, but then I went, okay, if I really get this, what kind of life do I want to create? And I wrote out a blueprint of all the pleasures, of all the joy, of all the happiness that would be in a day. And I created this template, like, how am I going to create? Well, I have to do yoga because I was obsessed with yoga and I still am. I
Hmm.
have to drink coffee, which is now changed to matcha lattes. I wrote them all down and then I created this kind of form of a blueprint of every day being happy because I do all of these things in amongst all the
Hmm.
work that I do. And then later on, I flipped it so that everything I do is pleasure, even the work. It's not like, you know, that statement of
Hmm.
business or pleasure.
Yes.
And so that's when I became an entrepreneur. It was like India, that experience. I was like, all right, out on my own. I need to do something which fulfills on a
Mhm.
fulfilling life, you know, that's happy. So yeah.
So when you came back, you found out that they cut your job, which
Yeah.
is a clear message from the universe.
Yeah.
In case you haven't figured out while you downloaded the you never be happy in a 9 to 5 and happiness is a choice. Now you have like a great opportunity to rebuild something.
Yeah.
So you reflect on what it meant for you and what you wanted. And so at that time, did you start there doing coaching or
No.
you did something else?
No, I realized another piece of the equation of the coaching, which I have done for probably the last 15 years,
Mm.
was that I was not a model person who was going to do one thing in life.
Mm.
I was a different role model as a
Yes.
woman and as the way that I think about things. So I don't see one route to the, here we
Yes.
go, and I'm going to just do this thing for 50 years and then I'm going to retire. I'm like, I never want to retire from my life because I'm so excited by it. So what are all the things that I can do in it? And I ended up with I know I'm a different role model for younger women sometimes because they go, oh, we didn't realize that you could do all these things. And I'm like, yeah, and you can do all these things really well, because that's another myth that you're taught. Oh, if you don't stick to one thing, you'll do other things badly. But I've done many things very
Greatly.
successfully.
Yeah.
So I started to accrue this ability to really enjoy things. And recently, we were talking our mutual love of Melanie Ann Lair, because I adore her, but she was doing the human design. And I
Yes.
have one as one of my
Wow.
numbers.
Line.
I'm a one. What am I? I'm a 1-5, 5-1, whatever. Sorry,
I'm
confused.
a three
I'm going
five.
Okay. So the one piece, I have found there are things that I do for a certain piece of time, and then I get this gut belly instinct right in the solar plexus that goes, it's time to change.
Wow.
And so I shut something down quite successfully. It's like I don't just leave it like hanging, but I'd go, all right, because I'm creating many foundations. And that dropped in for me, a couple of weeks ago when I saw that talk. I thought, oh, it makes so much sense. So as I'm able to train entrepreneurs, I can say, look, I've done all these different things, a lot of event production. I ran a yoga festival at one point. I've done a multi-million property company. I've written 5 books. I've photographed endless things. It's not one flavor, it's all
Totally.
these different things.
Yeah.
Um,
Variety.
so I think it started in my late 20s and it's gone on since. But yeah, it's the ingredients are there.
And how did you manage to completely or to how did you manage to feel safe and pursue all those different form of art, of work, of because sometimes you're right, sometimes like the society, the people around are like, why don't you just settle and do something instead of doing 10 things? And I'm exactly the same as you are. And for long I thought I was like a pizza. I was like many ingredients. And one day I realized a couple of years ago now that everything that I do was to contribute to someone else's well-being.
Yeah.
And it felt, so smooth.
Yeah.
It was like, I was for years looking at what was my calling, what should I do, and I did so many things, and people were like, they were asking me, what are you gonna do when you're grown up? And that was the worst question for me. And I was like, and now I'm 41, and sometimes I say to my friend, one day when I'll be a grown up, I'll do whatever. Like, because I don't think one day I'm going to do only one thing. But what did you do, like, to be able to do that in the late 20s and to continue until then, until now, to do
To feel
all those
safe.
things?
I don't think I ever fully felt safe. And I would say that is because I was always an odd fish, as they would say. It's an English expression. I was always an outsider. I was always different. I thought differently. I was deeply involved in spiritual thinking from the age, since I was born. People say often there's an event that happens, which is the wake up. I was born awake, and I'm just really clear about that. There was this deep spiritual piece, which does not make me always fit in with traditional like business or society or anything. I'm always looking for, like you're talking about, how you do it for the betterment of other people. For me, I would add in the work for me is like for the planet, for the people, for the animals. It's like I do things which are really cool, like it's a calling. And so I never felt safe, but safety is not the goal for me. It's like being outside the box is the goal. So if I'm too safe and I'm too comfort zone ridden, to me, comfort zone is just sitting on the couch watching TV, right? You've just come home, you've done your job 9 to 5, and then you sit down, you drink half a bottle of wine, then you go to bed and you repeat forever. For me, that wasn't a life. And so,
Neither.
you know, when I even speak to people who are coming out of corporate, because I've led quite a number of people out of corporate,
Yeah.
the edge for them is, well, oh my God, but there's the paycheck at the end of the month. And I'm like, yeah, and that's your comfort zone. And right there, if you aren't having that kind of expectation of, oh, the money only comes on a certain day, you know, 28th of the month, you're already outside of it. I'm like, I have no idea where the money's coming. That's the scary bit. And it was scary when I was younger. But then I can't live in the 9 to 5. So that's even worse. Like that to me is hell.
Totally.
And I find hell. So let's do this other thing and let's see what happens. And it was more like that. I work with my edges all the time. You know, where's the edge? Let's go.
Yeah, we're very close, you and I, because I'm always on the edge too. And I say often to my friend, I like knowing how much I will earn in a month is very anxious for me.
Yeah.
As of many people feels it's very cool that they are paid. Here in Canada, we're paid every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So like the paycheck gets in and they're comfortable and yeah, and I'm like, it's okay. Like I work for the School of Entrepreneurship, I told you, and I have a paycheck and it's okay, but it can't, for me, it can't be like it's gonna be that. I still have my coaching business at the same time. It was a condition when I started working with them, but it would be strange having a School of Entrepreneurship not hiring entrepreneurs. So they are very used to it, so it's okay. But it's super fun, because for me it was very stressful just to have like a maximum. I was like, no.
Yeah.
That's too stressful. But sometimes it's a bit lonely. I don't know how you experience it, but sometimes it's lonely. I don't have more and more today, because I get myself into groups like the Melanie's one, and where I met people that are much closer to what I am, trying to evolve every day and trying to push themselves and try to go on the scariest path instead of the safest one. But for years I felt I was, like, as you said, an odd fish. I felt I was a bit alone in my way of functioning and everything.
Well, yeah, and I think that's part of it. And also, if you are a 5, I think that's the bit that's the heretic, isn't it? So you are always on the edge in that particular human design. You're like, you're creating new systems. You're the one who's got the answers that haven't even been thought out yet. And that's why people resist you, and they find that you are, you know, leading them down a path. But I would say that if you trust yourself, so my whole focus is, if I trust me, I don't have to trust you. I don't have to trust what you're telling
anyone
me.
Else.
I don't have to trust the system. I don't have to trust anything, because most of the work is, as you said, it's not with the system or the methodology of people. It's with the person. That's why they're not successful, or there's a problem or whatever. It's not the system, it's the person. So I have long felt that most of my work is devoted to understanding my mechanism. How does it work? I would say that entrepreneurs have 3 basic issues. It's either the objection, anyway, to doing something. The objection will be time. I haven't got the time. Money. I haven't got the money. Or I'm not good enough, in one of those versions. I think that's, as far as I can conclude, that's it, right?
Yes.
So mine is money. I came from a family which did not have a lot of money, and also they're all academics. So where they put their value is brains, not business. They think rich people are all assholes, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? It's like that. And so when I started inquiring into big shifts, big visions that could change the world, then it also involves big money. And I come from a family who distrusts money, or you know, like that. If I had $1 million right now to say, hey, let's go out for dinner and we'll do anything, that would not impress them. But what would impress my family is that I've written a book, or, you know, other things.
Yes.
So as it comes up for you, whoever you are, whatever those objections are, it will always occur, no matter how old you are. When I was young, it was like, oh, $20 was like, oh, how do I get the $20? It's the same feeling as when I'm dealing in millions. Literally the same emotional feeling of when I was a kid trying to figure out a $20 issue is the same as me now as an adult figuring out millions of issue, right? Same feeling. And I know that with me, here's how I operate, because I study myself. I go, hey, yes, that's a great idea. Excellent. Yes. And then I know, and even if it involves a lot of money and I'm going to spend a lot of money, say on a coaching thing or something, I go, yes. And then I just wait. And the next thing is the little voices start going, oh, well, you don't need to do that now. Maybe you could do it later. Maybe you could blah, 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 blah. And I just let that stuff happen now. And I go, all right, thank you so much. I'm going to put you over here. And then I go, yes, again, yes.
Yes, yes.
Even though I have no idea how the
Totally.
thing is going to work. I just go, all right, yes, that's the mechanism. The objection will, blah, blah, blah. That's the family, the history, the ancestors. And then I let them talk. I put them over here and then we go, yes, again. And I feel like, oh, I know myself. I don't know the journey. I've walked away from some things and I've left a lot of money in place, and it's okay. And the same is true for time, and the same is true for, are you good enough? Same objections will come up for you.
Totally. And I think like all of them is workable. I mean, what you just said, like for long, I was not good enough, or I was too much. Like it was both.
Yeah.
So I always felt like I was not on the right level of anything. And one day I decided it was over.
Yeah.
I just, like, you achieve many, many things you were dreaming of. You're sometimes in uncomfortable position because you are not totally like it's fate more than odds.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you're gonna learn and live with this, and I'm very good at when I make decision, I'm very, very good at, like, it was my decision, I made it, I'm clear about it, and if it's not the good one, well, I'm gonna learn, and if it's the good one, well, it's gonna be perfect. So I embody clearly what I choose to do or not, and now it's much more easier for me. But I still have those about money sometimes, and those about time sometimes, and those about, and sometimes I need, as you said, to remind myself that I said, no, now you're not enough, or you're not too much, you are just whatever you are, and it's perfect like that. And as I said to you before the call, I build evidence of what I want to see in the world. So when I met Melanie-Anne Layer, I was building evidence of you can be a coach and be very successful being just yourself and providing from a place of sharing, and not just only in the scholar world, like, for example, the PowerPoints and all those things, because for me, there's a part like on this that doesn't feel right anymore for some transfer. And she was there, and I was like, ah, perfect. And sometimes I create evidence of other things. And when I decided I was just going to be myself instead of wondering if I was enough or too much, people starting to write to me like, oh, you're shining, it's super fun. Oh, something changed about you. Oh, you feel much more like, so those were for me new evidence that being only myself, which is not always easy. People think that it is, or it looks easy from outside. It's not the case. but like every day being conscious that I want to be just myself and that everything that comes out of it is precious and is meant to be,
Yeah.
works out much better.
Yeah. And it's a great life then. You don't have to
Yes.
fight against yourself. And, that I really get the I'm too much bit. I'm like that. And not enough bit. Both, it's both sides of the same coin, isn't it?
Yes.
I've had those conversations endlessly, but now I'm like, I'm great. Actually, I say it more like, you're great. I even look in the mirror and I go, you're amazing. And I would recommend it to
To
anybody
everyone. Yes.
to
Totally.
just, I'm the business, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just be the movie star of your own movie,
Yeah, totally. And I was talking to a client earlier today, and that's what I was telling her. I was like, honestly, you really need to be unapologetic about what you are and how you do the stuff and how you feel, and just sometimes you're like kind of scared, and being fully responsible for your life is sometimes very scary,
Yeah.
because it means that you can do good or bad things, make error or not, but also when you are able to go that way, it also means that you have like your life's gonna look like what you want to live, and you're gonna be happy, and you're maybe sometimes it's not I told her it's not that it's always easy. That's not true, and it will never be. I don't think so that it will always be easy, but it's always beautiful and wonderful.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot scary, but like it lives aside.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a great story that I wanted to tell you
Yes.
of exactly these ingredients. So roll on. I am now doing photography, and I've been a professional photographer for, if I really go back to the very beginnings of my interest in photography, at this point it's 20 years, right? I've done it for 20 years, and I love it, and people love me as it. They love the fact that my personality fits a photographer. So I've got everybody around me telling me this is what I should do, right? And I am gradually feeling these moments of, this is not what I want to do. And I don't know why. It's not the photography. I love the aesthetics and everything.
Yeah.
But it built up to a point where, I was feeling this feeling all the time, like going, and it was long days doing interiors at that point in London and some of the most posh, beautiful flats. So there's no reason why I was feeling this, like, you shouldn't do it. I was at a peak as well. I was doing well. And yet on a Christmas Eve, I'm standing in a James Bond style flat apartment over the Thames, looking out on Christmas Eve. And I just went, that's it. That's it. And I don't even know why, but all I'm doing is I'm on my own a lot. I'm setting up a lot of lights. Then I do the photography. Then I go home and then I upload all night, So I said this thing, which I consider to be sacred pact to self. When you have these moments, and I work with entrepreneurs like this, what is your sacred pact to yourself? It's about your calling. It's about your purpose on the planet. It's what you came here to do. And all of a sudden I was experiencing that level, and I was like, this is not it. It just isn't it. So I said, I'm not coming back after Christmas to myself. And I just thought, and I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I have no idea how to make the money for the mortgage, etc., and all of this. So I go home and I work very much with spiritual systems. And I believe that it was a full moon when I get this email. And this is a long time ago. It's 22 years ago or so. I get this email so it's not like current where it's happening all the time with entrepreneurs. I get this email. It looks really cheesy and, an American for the Brits. It's like in your face marketing, and it goes, "Do you want to change your life?" And I go, "Yes, I do." And I just responded. I just went blah, 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 like this, and they wanted me to fill out a whole bunch of things about describe a house that you want to live in, describe all the rooms, the scent, whatever, all of it. So I do this exercise. Then I have to send it to them. And then the next day, of course, an American guy phones me. And he is so cheesy again, like compared to this sort of sophistication that you can get in Europe with some of the messaging and all of that. This is like really in your face American, but I trust him. I have this complete feeling that it's okay. I trust him, even though he's like presented in a way that I would normally go run a mile. So I listen to him, and he goes, what it shows with this, this sort of quiz I've done is that you're a calculated risk taker. You are perfect for the program, of course. And and we want you to consider coming in, and you've got 4 choices of the things that you would be trained in order to do. So one was create a business. I'd already done that. Stocks and shares, semi-interested in that. Okay, but not really. And then infopreneuring, which is selling information on the internet. I was like, no. And the 4th one was property. Never done it, never trained in it, never had any interest in it whatsoever, not in a commercial way. And I just went, it's property, let's do it. So another piece, because you're asking, how do people get over the fear? So he wants $6,000. I didn't have it. And then he talks to me about how, well, do you have credit cards? Now, this would be my mother's worst nightmare. Somebody saying, some man on the phone saying, "You've got a credit card, honey," in this cheesy way. And yet I completely trusted him. I felt this surge of, it's okay. And so I went ahead. I paid it on a credit card, which allows entrepreneurs to actually make a leap sometimes. It's good, it's useful. So I do this, and then 3 months into the training, I'm on with my coach, not that guy, another one who I quite liked. And he said, okay, so the homework today is you go and buy a flat in London. And I was like, no, like, come on, that's my homework. And he goes, that's the homework. You've got all the information. You studied for 3 months. You've got all the figures. You know what your niche is. Which my niche was hilarious. It sounds so funny. It's like all the popular areas, I was the rim of the popular areas, right? The most expensive, but I'm not in them. I'm the rim of those. So that's my model. I've come up with it. And I just go, oh my God. And he goes, but if you don't, that's it. You're really not working with the course, and we can't do anything with you. So up to you. So I do it. And it was the beginning of what took 12 years to become a $10 million company, 10 million pounds company. And so I never told my mother, because she would have gone, oh my God, this American guy who wants $6,000, you're kidding me. By the time I was well into that, my mother was investing with me. All my friends were investing in with me. I would do a package, create investment. I was starting to sit with the heads of banks, not even like, the lower down, the head of the bank. And I had these tattoos on my fingers, and I was like, I can't go into a bank meeting like this. I can't, so I would sort of do all of this kind of thing, like, hide the hand, use this hand a lot because I've got no tattoos on this hand. And it was all a myth, all that stuff that you think you're meant to be. I was meant to be alternative, way out, like the hippie that I've always kind of been, but really working in high finance. And that was only the beginning. But I'm telling you, because, when people or women, I don't know if your podcast is specifically to women, but we get in this rut where we think, I can't do that. It's outrageous. So I flip it to imagine you are looking back from the last day that you're spending on the planet. It's not a negative. It's not like, oh my God, we're going into the how are you leaving the planet? No, just look back and go, do you feel fulfilled? Are you fulfilling your calling? And if you have any regrets from that perspective, you're not living the life that you're meant to live. And so I remember this all the time because I've made many of these decisions now since, and I guide people through them as well. It's got to be really authentic for me, an authentic moment. And so when it's come up again, I no longer work in property. I've still got an interest in it, like I no longer work in photography.
Yeah.
I will have a moment where it goes, it's the end of that. We're moving on. We're doing something else. So I shut that down and then I go on to something else. And always with this amazing interest and love of life, you know, because at the end of my life, I know I have had a freaking great life, you know. It's been unusual. I've done some crazy, stupid things, but there's also like, I really am fulfilled, you know, on that level.
One of the coach I like here in Quebec has like a line a bit like yours about when you arrive to heaven. He's like the guy there is like checking stuff. So okay, so Inarra, you did wrote the book. Okay, you did do the properties. Okay, you did do the okay, and then he looks down and he looks at and close it, and he's like, "What have you looked at?" And he's like, his answer is all the things you could have done that you choked on and you didn't do. And 10 years ago, when I heard that for the first time, I was like, oh my God, am I choking on stuff I need to do? You're talking about books I'm writing. I'm writing one. It's been 6 years I'm working on. And sometimes I choke and sometimes I work on it. So that's like one of the things I'm like, that needs to come to an end and to be published and finished. But it's super fun because those moments and those sentences sometimes helps us make the next steps towards something we're scared, uncomfortable, and I hear you say like 20 years and one day you wake up and you're like, no, now it's done. And then properties, and then one day you're like, no, it's done. And so many people are sign up to things even though they know and they feel that it's not good enough or not good anymore for them, or they don't feel drawn as they were. And it's very courageous to walk away from something working well.
Yes,
because there's like a big leap of faith towards what will come after, and for that you need to believe strongly that what comes after is better than what you left and bringing something new. So it's very, very cool, and it's very inspiring for me.
Good. Well, you know, and funnily enough, so I've done other things, like I created a yoga festival. And that was a real passion. I thought I was going to do it for the rest of my life. Every time I think these moments, because that's how I go into things. But it's not worth going into detail of this, but there was a sort of hate campaign that happened. And the stalker and somebody who was writing awful things about me on Facebook and that. And I saw that dream like going down the toilet. I was like, oh my God. It was a disgruntled employee who was a computer tech guy who just started, he was a bit nuts, but he started writing all of this stuff all over the internet and I couldn't shut it down. And when that dream went down, that was one of the ones that I shut down, but I felt regrets about. I remember the year after, I suddenly saw all these festivals that were happening in England. England has so many festivals. And the biggest problem that happened was in 2019, it was starting to be televised so people could watch from home. That was the first challenge to it. So a lot of people didn't want to go. They were just actually happy to watch from TV. And then
Yeah.
the second year after that, it was COVID. And I thought, whew, I escaped. Like the reason
Yeah,
I
yeah.
shut it down was something else.
Universe
But
send you something to make you,
yes,
yeah.
I just feel I'm looked after. I look after myself, and you know, just don't be scared to do something wild. It's like, yay, let's do something wild. And if you hang out with wild people, then they will say that to you. But if you hang out with people who are all safe and it's like, oh no, you can't do this and that, you will stifle yourself. And I feel suffocated in that company where people are all going, oh, you know, you don't want to do that. No, no, no. So you got to choose who you're hanging out with as well. Like, who is going to support you? Who is going to take you on
Totally.
the wild ride, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes remember that you're the one choosing. So they might have an opinion on some stuff, and unfortunately, they're not living your life, so they don't know all the pieces of it. But
Yeah.
clearly, sometimes, and I say that often to people I coach, is like maybe your husband, your mom, your dad, your friends are not the best advisor because they love you so much. They're scared for you to fall, to hurt yourself, and everything. So it's not that they don't believe in you and they don't trust that you would be able. They would be the first to cheer you up when it's gonna be done. It's just until then they are scared that you hurt yourself, and sometimes they're scared because they've tried themselves and it didn't work, and so they feel that it's the same thing repeating itself. So maybe you need to choose better who you're sharing your stuff to, and pick some people that are also trying to achieve nice thing and amazing thing, because you were talking about some people, their life is work 9 to 5 and it's okay, and then go back home, and then so when you talk about extraordinary stuff, they feel like it's unachievable and unattainable. It's not always the case. I prefer, and I used to be a national gymnast, a tumbler, and at that time I was training with the national team and I was not that good, but they were going to the World Cup and everything. Every time I step on that mat, I was the less so I got inspired from every friend I would train with, and that was for gymnastic. And that's like in my life, I prefer having friends that are much better in some stuff and inspiring me to get to become the better version of myself and to achieve the things that I'm scared of. And so surround yourself with people that are bringing you up, and not only don't throw the other one around. It's only that sometimes they love you so much they're scared. Or same thing for your husband or spouse. Honestly, if you're sharing the same budget and that your entrepreneurial journey doesn't work as you want right now, it's stressful for them too. So they're not the greatest people to get advice from because they're scared. So just pick the
That's so
people to
true.
talk to.
It's so true that, yeah. Actually, I find that what's happened for me is I'm so unusual in the way that I think. I don't mean like in the world, I just mean in my groups of people, that the only people that I can really talk actually are other coaches who are at a high level of conversation like this, live the life like this, and some people I coach who then become friends because, you know, we just gel on those conversations, because I would be starved if I didn't have it. I need those conversations. I need to, you know, really think big. And I'm not very satisfied with, you know, having groups of friends who can't go there because it's all very like, you know, it's too much, it's too scary, it's whatever. So I need the outlet. It's great speaking to you for that reason. It's like, yes, we know what we're doing.
Yes, and I love talking to you too.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have the impression, like what I say often is start from now.
Yeah.
Because like you're looking at people you're admiring, and so often I've put pressure on myself not to be good enough. We were talking about it because I was looking at them and I was like, oh my God, that's so far. Becoming as good as they are, it's so far. But if you don't start today, you won't, like, you never get there. So if you start today, just one step at a time, and then you get better and better, and they get better too. So they still, like, I love admiring people I surround myself with.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite thing. Being like, oh my God, you're so good in that.
Yeah.
I'd love
Like,
to
mwah,
become better.
I
Like,
love that you're good at that. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I
exactly. And at the same time, when I switched a couple of friends and a couple of relationship and the surrounding and the group in where I put myself now, at the same time, I became, for some people, on some level, the inspiring one. And I felt a lot more comfortable with it than I was before. Because I was
yeah.
like, okay, so some stuff I achieve are very cool, and some others I want to achieve. So I admire people. And at the same time, jealousy disappeared in my life. Not
Oh,
in my, I'm not someone jealous. I'm very much inspired by, but I felt jealousy around me for years, for many reasons. And the day I decided to surround myself with people that are better than me at some stuff, and I'm better than them at some other stuff, there's no jealousy anymore. All of my friends are very, very proud and cheerleading me when I get to
so
do some
great.
stuff.
Yeah, that's a profound piece, that as well. Have experienced it. Jealousy is like one of the most toxic emotions. And you know, I haven't been jealous much in my life either, but I remember when I have, and it's like it's always because the relationship is out of balance. And it makes me feel sick that,
Yeah.
you know, it's just ugh, the way you feel about yourself when you're jealous of somebody else. So I don't really attract that either now. It's more like I'm just blown away. And, you know, also the young women who are just so amazing. Like I'm such an advocate for them. It's like, wow, you know, you guys
Really.
are incredible. I love that feeling.
Totally. And what you get in return is that people feel safe to share their wins
Yeah,
instead of trying to hide them or trying to, like, you need to be proud of what you achieve. And even if it's a small step or a big step. So if you feel that when you share, you create or provoke jealousy or distance or whatever, you're not going to share, and you're not going to be really proud of it, because if you're not able to talk about it, you're not able to celebrate and everything. And that's a big thing I learned in the past 2 or 3 years, because I wasn't a good one celebrating my stuff. I was very much performance driven, and I wanted to achieve more and be better, and but I had difficulty to see what I have come through to be here and celebrate, and then put another objective. And so I'm getting better at it. And like, people surrounding me being happy for me when I win something and when I achieve, and exactly the same on the other way around, is much, much easier. And it felt so good and much prouder when you achieve some stuff and you're happy too.
absolutely. Yay.
Yay, it was so fun talking with you.
Totally. We will, I'm sure, outside of this, talk again.
Yes, totally. We need
Yeah.
to do that. Thanks
Yeah.
for your time. Thanks for sharing
Pleasure.
all the amazing stuff you did. Thanks for being such an inspiration for me, and hopefully for a lot of people that will listen or watch us.
Yeah. I hope it inspires some of you out there to just go, if you've had that little feeling during this, oh, I recognize that, and she did it, then go do it.
Yeah,
Go do
yeah,
it.
yeah, totally. One
Yeah,
step at a time, start today, and you're gonna be
exactly.
amazed of what you achieved in a couple of weeks, months, and years.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Oh, such a
Thank you for your
pleasure to
time.
speak to you. Yeah.
Pleasure shared. Thank you for your time. People, if you have questions for me or for Inarra, please feel free to write them down like under the video or directly on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those. And it would be a pleasure for me to transfer them to Inarra if it's for her. Thank you. See you next week. It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Come back next week with another guest that has a fascinating story to tell and that will inspire you to take action towards your own path. If you like this show, I'm inviting you to leave a 5-star review. That way, it helps us to spread the work and fulfill our mission even more. The podcast is also available in a video format on YouTube. You'll find it under the same name, Trouve ta place, Find your place, under Catalyseur de Potentiel. Let's connect on social media. You'll find me as Stéphanie Bergaud or Catalyseur de Potentiel on Facebook or Instagram. Have a great day.